Are you a loyal Godfather fan? Then you've come to the right place. This is Take the Cannoli, the Godfather Podcast. Here we talk about everything Godfather, from the movies to the effect on our culture. Still going strong 50 years later. Here's your host, author and Godfather expert, Lou Borton.
Hey, it's Lou Borton, and this is Take the Cannoli, the Godfather Podcast. And we have a guest this week. How exciting is that? Hi, Hunter.
Hey, Lou. Great to be here.
Hunter Gatewood and I met during Michael and Amy Port's heroic public speaking course. So we both have great keynotes and we're ready to hit the road and start doing those. Mine is not surprisingly related to The Godfather. What is the name of your keynote speech, Hunter? Remind me again.
It's called The Time Trust Connection in Teams.
Mm-hmm.
And so it definitely connects to, I've been thinking, getting ready, excited to be with you here about the relationship between loyalty, which is what your Godfather themed keynote is about, and the work on trust in teams. And so one of the big ideas in my keynote, or the main idea, is that if we slow down just a little bit, so again, there's never enough time, there's always urgency and time pressure. If we can slow our roll just a little bit in order to invest in developing trust between the people on our team, that will pay us back over time. It will gain us trust in the long run. And we'll have more fun, and everybody will be more productive in their work as well in terms of getting the results we want to get.
Yeah. So when you go into a company, what do you typically work with them on? If they say maybe now they're more spread out or they have remote teams and things like that, is that one of the issues?
Absolutely. Yes. That is something that always comes up. And I talk about that. My work, like you said, our keynotes, your and my keynotes are new. They got polished up during that wonderful program with Amy and Michael Port. And the idea for the keynote comes from the work that I do, which is I teach leadership courses focused on people in the middle management role. So supervisors, managers, directors, up to VPs sometimes, people who lead from the middle. And so I do courses and coaching for those folks. And yes, that is a huge issue that comes up. How do we build trust? How do we even create connection when we're just not together?
Yeah.
And so we talk about how do you have to, one of the things is you just have to be intentional, make time to build trust, make time to build connection. You have to do the artificial work of scheduling things like a quick 15-minute phone check-in or something where in the old days, it would have taken place around the iconic water cooler in the hall. You would have just seen each other and had an opportunity to have lunch together. And now we need to take that extra effort. And part of what I do is I help people realize that it is worth that extra effort and that time to do less task as they're doing tasks together, task-oriented deliverable work, to make time to build that relationship. That is work as well. And that's valuable time spent.
Yeah. And I think obviously we both talked a lot about trust and loyalty, and my keynote about loyalty. And because I'm doing this Godfather podcast, it was always because I used to say to people, oh, The Godfather, that's a business book. And they'd laugh at me. I'm like, no, really? If you think about the themes of family and trust and loyalty and all that kind of stuff. And of course, in The Godfather, it's a little bit different. They'd sit in the office and decide who they were going to whack or whatever. But with these days, with people in offices or not in offices, I think about my twins who are now both out in the world working. They're 25 and they've been working for a couple of years. They have never been in an office. They've been 100% remote 100% of the time. So what do you do with companies in terms of building trust when they're literally not together ever?
You do need to make that opportunity take that time. And one of the things that I talk about in my courses and when I'm coaching people is that small things matter and small things build up. So like between you and me, I didn't know I don't know anything about your family. I know you're a family guy, but I never knew any details. You have twins. I'm a twin.
Really?
Yeah, I'm a twin. So yeah, we never knew. So that's something little, or the fact that we both have dogs or we both have cats, or I don't know, we both like to go to the mountains for vacation, whatever. We read similar books. We both love the movie The Godfather. It's one of the classics. So any little connection It doesn't have to be about work interests. It can be, but any little connection builds trust. Anytime we can say, oh yeah, Lou's like me, or I'm like Lou, or my family is like Lou's family in this whole twin scenario, that's
Yeah.
pretty unique. But there's many more common things we can think about that we share. And those little things do add up, and those make a big difference in terms of connection. You and I are working together. Say you hired me to help you. You would never do this. I don't know anything about this, but if you ever helped me to help you produce some of the brilliant marketing videos you do. If I'm a video editor and you hired me to do that for you, your clients, and I did something wrong, didn't do a good job on the first video, if we had some sort of personal connection, some level of trust between us, that would make it much easier for me to take your feedback and go back and redo it the right way versus getting defensive, worrying if Lou likes me, worrying if you're loyal to me and if I'm loyal to you, or worry about that trust. So the trust ends up being currency between people.
Yeah. I know. And back when I had a real job in a real office, would always do the Thursday nights after work and things like that. And now we're by and large, we're missing those social opportunities as well. So it is, I think, harder to bond with folks. And I think what you said about the little things, like typically I have 2 pugs, as you may know. Anybody else that owns a pug, there's like instant connection. We just have that, whatever. So you do have to find that common ground.
Right. And for me, what I'm doing, a lot of people don't like the icebreaker at the beginning of a meeting. I used to do still, but I used to do a lot of in-person events, and I would do strategic planning and event facilitation as part of my leadership development work. And I wouldn't call them icebreakers, but there's something to taking just a couple minutes as you start a meeting before blasting forward into the first objective and having the person launch their PowerPoint, whatever it is, to having a slow start or a slow finish, a slow wrap up, even if it's a Zoom meeting, because that's a lot of, like you're saying, that's what we do a lot these days.
Yeah.
Even just slowing the pace or having an open break. I'll do a 10-minute break if I'm doing a 90-minute training session that's part of my courses. We'll do a 10-minute break, and I'll just stay on Zoom while people are going and running to the bathroom or checking their email or getting coffee in the office or at home, wherever they work. But some of us will stay on and just chat. So again, just building those little times in, and that's not, I've started to see that as valuable and not just inefficient. It can be easy to say, oh, that's an inefficient meeting if there's a little bit of slow time or non-purposeful time. And the reframe that I've done for myself and I'm helping people do is, no, actually, we need those side conversations. We need those little chats about wonderful things like pugs and what you did over the weekend. That stuff really does matter.
Yeah. I used to go to the events with a t-shirt that said, please don't make me do stuff, because I didn't want to have the forced interaction and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Don't facilitate me too much or outside of my comfort zone. We also have to make room for people who are introverts and all those kinds of things. So the art of facilitation there's still a balancing act there.
Yeah.
Another thing that I teach a lot is one of the foundation of my leadership development work comes from the work of humble leadership, or some people know it as servant leadership.
Yep.
And so we can develop trust, we can develop connection when we show ourselves as perfectly human. The psychological safety is a big buzzword these days. And that's something that I pull from that growing literature. And the idea is that when we are in a leadership position or the project manager, or even just a colleague, if we allow ourselves to, if it's safe in our team culture, if we can say, and if we're the leader, we want to model this, not having to have all the answers and not having to be perfect as we direct the team. And if we screwed something up, saying, oh yeah, I'm sorry guys, I messed that thing up.
Yeah.
If you want to, let's help me fix it, or I'm going to try something different and we'll do better.
Yeah.
And that imperfection is not something a lot of people are used to in a top-down command and control culture, management culture. And it will build loyalty and trust if we can, in small ways, start changing those expectations where it's okay for the leader to ask other people for ideas, not have to have all the answers. I talk about myself as a recovering know-it-all, and people really like that.
Yeah. No, I never want to be the smartest person in the room, and chances are pretty damn good I will never be the smartest person in the room.
But just those just self-deprecating statements like that, we don't want to go too far. And depending on who you are and where you are in your career, even depending on things like gender and skin color, skin tone, that has different there's different expectations. But for two middle-aged white men like us, we can be self-deprecating. But anytime you can do that like what you just saying that to me, that helps me feel safe in this conversation and would help me feel safe being on Team Lou. When it's okay, Lou doesn't expect me to do everything he says, and he doesn't hold himself up as having all the answers.
Right. Now, on the flip side, going back to The Godfather, you wouldn't want to walk into a meeting with Michael Corleone with too much servant leadership and in a weaker position or things like that. You said you've seen The Godfather, a fan of it. Do you have a particular favorite scene or something that resonated with you?
I like I'm trying to think of I should have rewatched it in preparation for this, but I'm thinking of Luca Brasi, because I was thinking of this issue of what you're getting. Part of what you just said made me think of is the dynamic of control, power, fear-based leadership. The fact that you could get whacked at any point if you weren't loyal.
Right.
There's different reasons for loyalty. So I think of Luca Brasi as the giant who his head belongs. He's like he makes me think of like the Easter Island sculptures, those giant blockheads, literally in the middle of the ocean there on that little island. And the fact that he was so strong, and yet he needed that approval, and he did. He had that loyalty to Don Corleone.
Yeah.
So not a particular scene, but just those two as characters, the big cheese and then the enforcer.
He was very influential, even though he was this big, dangerous guy that everybody was afraid of. When he went to the Don, he was so nervous that he was flubbing his speech. I watched this scene the other night about he was practicing his lines outside.
I come to you.
Yeah. You have my undying loyalty. And funny thing is, just a side note on that whole Luca Brasi thing. He was a wrestler in a former life. He wasn't an actor. He was on set, like with sometimes the mob guys would come and watch the shooting and stuff like that. And somebody, I guess Coppola, spotted him, this gigantic enforcer guy who was actually in the mob, and that's Luca Brasi. And he was
perfect. That makes sense.
An actor. He was so nervous about acting with Marlon Brando that he kept screwing up his lines. So the couple had just made it part of the movie. All right, you can screw up, you can rehearse your line and screw it up, and we'll just build it into the script.
I love that. So yeah, while he was practicing his lines, they're like, okay, we're just gonna roll film and
exactly.
Make this part of the scene. That's really cool. I didn't know that. That's great.
Yeah.
I think of him in that dynamic. And in that scene, I come to you on the day of the wedding.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, but you said that the thing that's interesting is about so much of the mafia's loyalty was driven by fear and intimidation. So we don't really have that luxury in business. So we have to do it in other ways. And I think it's funny. I saw another mob movie, A Bronx Tale with Chaz Palminteri. And in that, he talks about a line that Machiavelli used to use on whether or not it is better to be feared or loved. So what is your take on that?
Definitely the more love side of the continuum for sure. Yeah, fear-based loyalty works in the short term, burns people out. And like you say, in business, people have options. They don't have to stay. So I think of the most dramatic, ridiculous example right now is the last, 2-3 weeks? I think it's been 3 weeks of Twitter, where Elon Musk comes in, doesn't ask any questions, doesn't try to learn what's going on, doesn't try to learn what makes the business successful, doesn't see the employees as assets. He sees them just as expense. He sees them as the big line item. He goes in and just starts slashing, and now they're trying to hire people back and get them to come back, and they're calling people who didn't sign the fealty oath. They wanted people to sign the fealty oath. I'm going to work extra hard. I'm going to come back to San Francisco and work in the office, even though people have moved all across the country to find more affordable places, even though people have kids in daycare or children who of any age who need their help. And it was like, okay, you're going to work just the amount of mistakes and unnecessary drama and waste and just dumb disruption for disruption's sake.
Yeah.
That's happened. That's all comes from somebody whose understanding of leadership is about power and fear and control, just how incredibly dumb and disruptive. And they're losing all this ad revenue. They're begging companies to spend money. Please spend money on ads, while he spent the first week basically alienating everybody who was paying Twitter to exist.
So it's been a masterclass in mismanagement, I think, from the get-go.
Exactly. And like you say, all based on all
Fear
from the position of fear me, do what I say, I have the power, versus
or else sign this pledge to work 18 hours a day or else. And he doesn't. Anyway, that's another whole topic for another whole podcast. But
but that's an example of fear-based leadership and that top-down management. I'm the boss coming in with just that incredible, just like over the top, just cartoon level arrogance, and saying just Scrooge McDuck level stuff, and coming in and saying, do what I say. I've got my own people. You all just basically communicating to the world that he thinks every engineer is just as good or as bad as every other engineer, and knowledge doesn't matter. Trust, loyalty, connection doesn't matter.
And then until he gets rid of everybody's, wait a minute, how do you fly this thing? Come back.
Exactly. And the cracks are starting to show and things are starting to fall apart on the back end. Yeah, exactly. So it's wild.
My experience with leadership, having been a manager, like when I was in Los Angeles, my department included 25 people. And I'm like, I've never managed this many people before. And somewhere along the line, I just knew enough that my philosophy was, I will never ask you to do anything that I would not do myself. And that meant before trade shows, if we had to stuff goodie, I'm going to be there with the troops in the trenches. And I think that's an important thing to think of when you're doing any kind of leadership, is don't ask your staff to do anything that you wouldn't do yourself, for better or worse.
Absolutely. Then those all hands on deck moments. I used to do that in my job. We would produce big events, not similar to trade, more conferences, trainings that we would do, and everybody would get together and put the little swag bags together, or put the packets together. We would get we'd have workshops. And so there'd be paper worksheets, which sounds so crazy these days, but this was just like 10 years ago, and we put all those packets together. But yeah, everybody's doing laps, collating around the conference table, packing bags. That was definitely a good time for teamwork, for team identity to develop, and the trust. And again, just getting to know each other as people is crucial. That's how we succeed or fail long-term as a team.
Awesome. Thanks so much for being on, Hunter. Tell folks where they could find you and how to best reach you if they want to reach out.
Yes, thank you. So I am available, and I post frequently my blogs and so forth on LinkedIn. So Hunter Gatewood on LinkedIn, H Gatewood is my handle there on LinkedIn in the URL. I also, depending on when this is coming out, in the next week or two, we're recording this at the beginning of December. HunterGatewood.com is my new website, and that will be up before the Christmas holiday. By hook or by crook, I'm finishing up all the back end pieces of that. You know how that works. So HunterGatewood.com. And then my consulting business is SignalKey.com. Signal like a traffic signal, and key like a house key. SignalKey.com is my consulting business. So any of those places are a good place to find me.
Cool. And will you have your speaker reel on one of those sites, or where's the best place for people to see
Yes, the speaker reel. Yeah, for the way we got to know each other. People can see my crab claws and hear my crab story we were talking about before we started recording. That will be on the HunterGatewood.com website, and it's also posted on my LinkedIn as well.
Excellent. I'll put the links below as well. And you have to watch the speaker reel. We all got an opportunity to do these speaker reels when we were doing this program together. And yours was, I would say, claws down the best.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, that was a fun few days filming each other's videos together.
Yeah, thank you. And I hope that we connect in real life again soon. Thanks so much for being on.
Yeah, thank you, Lou.
Thanks for listening to Take the Cannoli, the Godfather Podcast with Lou Bortone. Join us again next time. If you know what's good for you, the beige.